All right. Good morning, everyone. Oh, excuse me. Man, coffee went down the wrong. But good morning, everyone. It is Monday morning. What a way to start, right? So Monday morning coffee talk with Cody Davis. So good morning, man.
Good morning. I got mine too. I'm going to keep
Yeah,
it going down the correct throat.
yeah. Well, at least you're feeling a little better. I know last week you were under the weather, and I thank you for doing that. But yeah, let's catch up. But I think we're gonna slightly pivot just a little bit today. We were gonna kind of dig into one of Cody's recent videos. So he does videos every Tuesday, Thursday on his channel. So please go subscribe there. But there's so much talk over this weekend. It's a lot of news. I think the biggest thing was Trump talking about the 50-year mortgage, right? So have you heard about that, and what's your thoughts on that?
There's a lot of stuff getting posted about that. Some people love it, some people hate it. Just about normal with everything that ever comes out of a politician's mouth. So it it will be interesting to say the least. I have heard valid points for both sides. How it'll probably have a higher interest rate, so the delta's not that big. The bottom line, though, that I see is that people who use it intentionally will make money. People that are using it as a consumer will be burdened by debt for longer periods of time on a personal side. And those with assets will win, whether that's the banks, because banks have a lot of assets, whether that is the investor who owns a bunch of property. I see this pushing up pricing, which it doesn't really help the consumer a lot, but it should help the investor.
Absolutely. I think that's the biggest takeaway, right? It's kind of, we always try to come out with a response or whatnot, but it definitely is where you're sitting at the table, right? So everyone is going to take it a different way. And I didn't want to respond to, you did post about it in the school community. I didn't want to really answer because I didn't want to give out maybe what a lot of the videos I'm going to be sharing this week about. Because I think I'm going to discuss it on most of the live streams, have everyone see kind of what their point of view is. But definitely, yeah, I agree with most of what you're saying. I think the one thing, a lot of the comparisons I'm seeing on X, so a lot of people are breaking it down. They're using the same mortgage rate, right? So they're saying, oh, if it's 30-year at 6%, 50-year at 6%, this is the breakdown. And I think Zuber touched on it last night, right? If you look at like the 15 and the 30-year mortgages, bro, the 15-year has a lower mortgage rate. So that's kind of how you would probably want to look at the 50. It might be a higher rate than the 30, but I definitely feel it's another tool. And I think that if it can help people get a lower payment to get in the housing, that is one way I would look at it. So that is one way I'm seeing it. It can be helpful, but definitely, banks are going to win. People that hold assets are going to win, but it definitely can help people get on the property ladder, right? So do you have any other thoughts on that, or what I said, or pushback, or?
Well, what I've seen from people posting, I'm not on X. I'm on Facebook and Instagram, so the most credible of platforms. No, so what I'm seeing is everyone seems to be under the assumption that they have to take the 50. So everybody's going to take the 50. I don't see that being true. Not everybody takes the 30. So people do 25. Some people do 15. And I've heard of 10. I don't know a lot of people that do 10, but with like, there's options. Not everybody's going to do it. So I don't think it's going to be as impactful as folks are saying. But lowering the payment, I think about it with some family members. If it was the difference between them getting into a property now when their income's low, and then you figure a working career, if it's 40 years, over the course of that mortgage, they should make more and more money and they can refinance it into a 30 when they can afford it. But I see it as enabling for those who really can't get it right now.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the one way I really see the positive for it. If it can help someone lower the payment to help them qualify to get on the property ladder. And I saw another great breakdown on X was, if you save a certain amount, so it does lower the payment. And if you were to put that in the S&P 500 over 15 years over compound interest, what that account will be worth at the end of 50 years. And yeah, you're going to pay more interest on your mortgage over the 50 years compared to the 30, but the 50 years of the S&P 500 compounded at whatever you were saving per month, definitely cover that interest and more. So I think that's another way to look at it, is if the person has the discipline to put that extra money that they could be saving into another investment. So that's the tricky part also, right?
Well, and I would take this deal, the 50-year, I'd take that anytime I could on an investment property. Because basically, when you're not paying it down at the same rate as everyone else, you're borrowing against your amortization to invest elsewhere. That's what it is. So if you got a 6% mortgage, instead of paying it down, you're borrowing at 6% to have extra liquidity each month. And what you do with that is up to you. But every day of the week on an investment, I would take the 50.
And for a lot of people out there, they may only know, a 15-year, 30-year mortgages, and like you're talking about as an investor standpoint. I know you've recently talked about it quite a bit, right? I think you do a lot of interest only recently, right? Is it the 40, like 10-year interest only first and then a 30-year amortized, or?
Well, I'm doing that on some residential, but I've got 30-year fixed, no balloon on commercial properties like the seller finance route. I've had very long-term interest only debts, and I just prefer interest only. But that's because I'm going to be disciplined with the money. If someone were to do that, then they'd go get the nice car before they should, right? So there's some people that would do that. But I truly believe in controlling your cash flow to the biggest extent you can. And one way to do that is, instead of amortizing where you make extra payments towards the principal, you just pay the interest. And instead of focusing on building equity by paying it down, you focus on building equity by pushing the value up. And that's improving the property and the operations and all that. So it's just a different philosophy on it, but I don't believe in paying it down early, with extra payments every month. If you want to pay off a property, save up the cash in an investment account and then just write a check for the whole debt.
Yeah, and definitely, I think we've touched on it also too. It's a little more advanced strategy, but definitely, like the velocity banking, right? So you're doing a lot of interest only using a HELOC. You're converting amortized to simple interest, but you're making lump sum payments, right? You're keeping that daily balance lower in your line of credit account, and then you're taking that to either pay down the mortgage at a higher rate. But I think the biggest thing, and you've touched on it too, right? You like to have more, I guess, cash in hand, I guess, or coming from your investments, because cash can solve a lot of problems that you might be facing, especially earlier in your journey, right?
Yeah. And to touch on the point that you mentioned of the amortized loan, the way the interest is calculated is very similar. It's just one is a fixed payment plan and one is variable. So it's like you're taking on more payments to do the velocity banking thing, which is the thing most people don't understand, but you're skipping through years of time on a chart. So that's why that is beneficial. Because it's going to be a fixed payment no matter what you do, whereas the HELOC, every time you make a payment goes down.
Yeah. Let's see. Have you ever done the velocity? I know a lot of people in Hawaii, a lot of people were doing the first position HELOC and converted their whole, 30-year mortgage into a first position HELOC, and it was working well for a lot of people until the rates shot up. That then a lot of people were caught off guard. But for a while, yeah, people were paying down their mortgages rather quickly, using that strategy.
If Well, I actually built a calculator for that. I wouldn't do it with just the first. If it only works when the market's going well, it doesn't really work, right? So you use it as a small chunk. So I think about, like, on $1 million property, if I got $100,000 second and I knocked my first mortgage down to 900, I built a calculator to look at what's my actual interest savings over the course of time it takes to pay down the HELOC, and does it make sense? And based on what rate would it make sense? And it can make a lot of sense, but what it does is it'll still burden your cash flow, because while you're not taking on new debt, more debt, I should say, you are adding a new payment. The 100,000 might have a $700 a month payment or something like that. So it might just make sense for some people to take the extra $700 and throw it at the mortgage. It'll be simpler.
Uh, You kind of touched on it also, as far as those that own assets are going to probably win if this 50-year mortgage does come into play. So maybe touch on that a little bit. What is your thoughts on that, and why would asset owners win if a 50-year mortgage comes out?
Well, most people buy on payments. And you look at what happened when rates went really low. There were people getting like really big buyers that were getting like 2.5% interest only for 10 years. That enables them to buy stuff on a 3 cap and still have positive leverage. It's crazy. So if you can stretch the payments out, you lower the payment on an investment side, people can pay more and get the same, if not a better return than they were getting before. Which is why I would look at doing it for all my stuff. The one thing I would caution people on, though, is not doing a cash out refi, levering stuff up to 75, 80% on a 50 in the commercial space. I wouldn't necessarily do that with max leverage, because if the market takes a downturn, you're not paying it down very fast. You wouldn't have really paid it down at all by the time your 10-year call is up. But people buy on payments, residential and commercial. They're looking for either their monthly outflow or their monthly cash flow, and depending on the type of asset. So if you lower the payment, you have less going out, or you have more cash flow coming in, and that allows you to pay more.
Yeah, so Jim, the grumpy contractor, does say, yeah, I do see competition from the entry level buyers with a 50-year mortgage. I'll be able to afford it, definitely. But I think Zuber touches on it, right? There's kind of maybe three ways to possibly fix housing, or for first time buyers, right? Is you either have lower interest rates, more building of homes, right? And what was the next one? I'm trying to think.
Smaller.
Smaller homes is one way, or increased wages, right? Increased wages is another way. So, but building of homes will take time. That's every state will have to have their own regulations or whatnot, building code. But and if for some reason increasing of wages is something that I think it just seems like corporations are very against, right? So it's very difficult from that aspect. So the one thing that they can control that might be a little bit of a short term or quicker fix is to possibly roll out 50-year mortgages. And if he said if it helps people get on the property ladder now, definitely. Of course, there's going to be winners and losers. Like you said, the banks are going to win out on interest. People that own assets will, get increase in their net worth. But if it helps more people get on the property ladder, I mean that's kind of one positive from it. And like Cody touched on, right, you can always refinance later if you want to get into a 30-year mortgage later. But to get on the property ladder, I think is very important.
Yeah, and I
Um,
think about it. If I was 19 today and I was starting out and I couldn't qualify with a 30, but I could qualify with a 50, I'd absolutely take that. People are looking at, well, the interest rate's ridiculous. I saw an example where on a 30, it was like, I want to say it was like 500,000 of interest, and on a 50, it was over 1,000,001. It was something crazy. But if you think about the like inflation adjusted numbers, this is the thing people aren't putting out. What are those dollars worth each year over the course of that time based on history? Is it really that bad? No, it's not actually that bad. And you look at the value of the home relative to what you think you'll have saved in the retirement piece. It's like, I would take the 50 if it was the difference of qualifying or not qualifying. Because at 19 years old, in this hypothetical example, my income is not going to be the same as when I'm 30, when I'm 40, when I'm 50, if I'm even still living in that house and not renting it out or having sold it to buy something better. People are getting so fixated on that sticker shock price of interest that they're paying, but it doesn't materially matter because they're not paying it back with today's dollars.
Absolutely. Great point. Another thing that I found unique, and I'll probably bring it up to most of the guests that come on this week as part of the 50-year mortgage discussion, is a lot of people. I mean, have you ever looked at it from a what is the life expectancy? So when the 30-year mortgage was introduced at that time, what was the life expectancy of American, the median, right? So I believe it was like 60 or 62 years old. Now that the 50-year mortgage is a possibility, the life expectancy is closer to 80, right? So is there that much of a, people are working longer, right? People are trying to say people on, Social Security benefits are going to be pushed back. So it's just, it seems like part of the process in a sense, and a 50-year mortgage seems inevitable to be offered out there. So that's another thing I saw. Um, Casey does have a question for you. It says, Cody, quick question for you. How to talk to a listing agent about the multifamily when I don't have money?
Well, I will share a talking point on that. There has never been a time where the listing agent seriously asks me, how much money you got in your bank account? Anytime I brought that up, it was because I brought it up because I felt insecure about the situation. They're not asking. Now, they may ask you if you're asking awkward questions. You sound like you haven't done it before, but if you practice a few times, maybe in front of a mirror, maybe you record yourself. These are all things that I had to do when I was getting started. Figure out your talk track, what questions actually matter versus what are the questions people tell you to ask. Because if you're asking what everyone else asks, listing agent's probably going to know that you're just reading a script. So figure out what matters to you, go through that, be conversational. And the money piece will almost never come up. You can't say absolutes because then the first call you make, they're going to be like, well, what, how much money you got? That said, I wouldn't necessarily bring it up. Do the reps, do the work of figuring out what actually matters on the deal. Because the money's the least important piece. I will share that. And there's a time and place for money, but it is the least important part of any deal. And I do believe that.
And I think I forgot what call. It might have been on the Gen Z call that on Saturdays that Cody and Dylan run in the school community. You may have touched on it also. I think one of the first deals, you were working on, like you said, you didn't really tell the seller that you've never done a deal. I believe, right? It was more like I'm working on these other deals right now, which is true, right? I think you were like trying to make offers on some other properties and whatnot, right? So like you're saying, the money thing doesn't come. They don't. That's not something that usually comes up. You don't have to tell the seller that, but you're just presenting what you're doing. Right? I'm working on these other deals, not necessarily saying I haven't done a deal yet, right?
It's about positioning, is where you're getting at. So if you position yourself as a novice, people will treat you as such. If you position yourself as someone who knows what they're doing, you can know what you're doing and not have any money. Just like there's people that have a lot of money and don't know what they're doing, right? It goes both ways.
Lynn, who did a live stream yesterday, also with Dylan and Jack, and I think they were talking about the 50-year mortgage also. But she's saying it's not bad for investors, but is it a bad idea for the regular American who is trying to buy their first home? Yeah, so we did touch on that a little bit, and I think we're definitely, Cody and I kind of both agree that, yeah, if someone can help them get on the property ladder, right? If they can qualify at a 50-year and maybe not a 30-year, of course, hopefully they do take advantage of the 50-year mortgage to get on the property ladder, right? So I'll give credit where credit is due. I do see Chris Webb here tuning in from Central Virginia. He is the one that posted on X about the life expectancy. So, Chris, if you are still here, I was discussing your post on X about has anyone ever considered about the life expectancy and when the 30-year mortgage was presented, and where we're at today of life expectancy. So that was an interesting post on X. So but he has like three accounts on X. He's like Econ Web, and he also has like Invest LYH. So definitely go check out Chris on X. But we also, the main topic before this 50-year mortgage was thrown out by Trump and caused quite a stir, we were going to discuss Cody's recent video. So he does videos on Tuesday and Thursday, so go check out his channel. But there was one, he was talking about the silver bullet. So before I say anything about it, what is that video about, and why was it top of mind for you?
Well, the point of the video is you just have to move the ball down the field. If you're thinking about like a soccer reference, it's harder to shoot a goal when you're on your side of the field versus on your opponent's side of the field. And the reference is saying push the ball down the field towards the goal. There's people out there that treat their business where they're standing in where their defenders would be. They're trying to shoot it all the way across the field, get the silver bullet, meaning they're getting the one thing that's going to shoot the goal, make the goal from any point on the field. And that's not realistic. Can you do it? Yes. Has it been done? Sure. Is it going to happen for you? Probably not. It's easier to shoot a goal if you're 10 feet away than if you're 100 feet away. So what I was encouraging people to do on that video is get little wins along the way in their business. Stop trying to get everything when you have nothing. There have been deals that I've sold out of that I've gotten little wins, and if I had held on longer, I would have had massive wins. There's also been deals where I've gotten little wins, and if I held on a little longer, I would have had massive losses. So taking the little wins along the way keeps a trajectory going up rather than the ups and downs, because when you're shooting for the fences, you're either out or you get it, right? And so it is much more likely for someone to win for whatever their goals are if they're just getting these little hits along the way than to try and get the grand slam, hit it out of the park every single time. Some people do that, and it's incredible, but the odds of that are very low.
Yeah, I also quickly wanted to share that my friend Brian Waters, he's a fire captain in California. His episode on bigger pockets was just released today, so there it is in the chat. Go check it out. He actually was at Thatch's event also when Michael Zuber was speaking there, but he actually went on stage to go help someone. Someone fainted on stage, and Brian Waters was in the crowd, and he jumped on stage to provide support for this person that passed out. But his episode just released on Bigger Pockets today, and there's Cody's channel also, so go subscribe if you haven't yet. But I think, like I said, the main topic was going to be this silver bullet, waiting for the right time or get off the sidelines. And I think we can relate that to the 50-year mortgage, right? So we kind of been talking about it, how it might help people get off the sidelines, because if now they can qualify at a 50-year mortgage, then definitely, hopefully, people take advantage of it, right? So, so like you kind of touched on it, moving the ball down the field, right? And with finding deals and making things work, not always swinging for the home runs. And it's funny you mentioned that, because yesterday my son had flag football, and the conditions are like horrible. It's raining, it's in the valley, it's all muddy. And the kids are still trying to play as if it was just sunny, right? They're trying to throw Hail Mary, they're trying to get the touchdown on every play, throw these deep passes, and the ball is slippery and they can't run. And I'm like, just like, run the ball and dump it off. And then these kids, they just don't listen. But that's the thing, right? People are always trying to hit that big deal, that home run deal, when, like you're saying, just moving the ball down the field and taking the small wins. And a lot of times that's where you're going to get the results from. Let's see. When you don't have all the pieces, how do you keep momentum then? Relating to the silver bullet you're talking about.
Well, you do what you can with what you have. That's all you can do. If you're playing a game, you have certain pieces on your board, and if you don't have other pieces, go play a different game or figure out how to win with what you have. Those are your options. You don't just get to say, well, I really like what Marc has, so let me just go use it. You can't do that. I mean, if you had a bunch of money in a bank account, someone could ask you to borrow it, but you might say, no, I don't like what you're doing. So you have to do the best you can with what you have. In my situation, I've never had enough liquidity. It's never been in the cards for me because I didn't start with any. So I had to build up equity that was cash flowing along the way, and I had to grow that number. And then over time, I've peeled a little bit of that out, but it's still not enough. So now I have to look at, okay, well, what pieces do I have that I'm willing to shift? And what that might mean is I sell an asset and use some of my losses from depreciation on other stuff and try and offset that and hold some cash in the bank. But that's a process. It takes time. It doesn't happen today. Even if it does happen, it's not perfect because now I'm giving up an asset just to have cash. trading pieces. So I don't get to keep all the pieces on my board and get a new one. I have to hand one out and get a new one. So you have to do the best you can with the information and the pieces you've got. Because the other thing is, you might have all the pieces you need to get there, but if you don't have the information or don't have the confidence to execute on it, you could have everything you need to know, but you don't do anything because you're scared, and now you're stuck. Maybe more so than the person who didn't have the right pieces.
Chris Webb is saying, yeah, great analogy, Mark. Sometimes you have to run in certain conditions, like house sack in certain market conditions, and other times pass, creative in other market conditions. Yeah, definitely. All Nighter Hider says, I'm transitioning careers too, and thanks, Millennial Mike and I are scheduled to return to Gary at the end of this week for the weekend. Oh man, you're in Gary. You might as well get residency there, Hider. You've been here like how many times in the past few months? But yeah, Millennial Mike had his debate also last night on Rotten Tomatoes. It was actually he actually got the other person to almost pretty much say they conceded, and that Mike has almost changed their viewpoint on what they were trying to present on the other side. But very close. But I think a lot of respect was given from both people that were debating. I think it was a very organized and very great discussion. So if you haven't seen it, go check out Millennial Mike's episode on the Rotten Tomatoes yesterday. Now the chat section was pretty wild with Lumberjack, so that was the entertaining portion of it. But as far as the debate went, yeah, Millennial Mike and the other individual did a great job. And yeah, I mean, I think that's the one thing, right? It's even like some people have all the information, some people might have the money, and but it also just the confidence. I think that's the one thing people don't talk about quite a bit. It is they talk about either money or the knowledge, but it's confidence. I think that is the key thing for most people to really get over that hump and get started. And do you see that holding a lot of people back when it comes to all of this? They're getting off the sidelines.
Absolutely. The unwillingness to look stupid. I think that's how I would put it. I've gone out before and put myself out there and got egg on my face, where as I would say something and it was so completely wrong, but I got corrected, and then I started to course correct, because you got to get noted as being wrong before you can really understand what right is. Otherwise, you're just living a lie. And so I was educating a client when I was 19 years old, and it just so happens we were in a coffee shop, and the guy right behind us butted in. He's like, actually, that's not correct. And he owned 2,000 units, no partners. Imagine that. And so he educated me there. But I had to end up looking stupid. And if I wasn't willing to do that, then granted, I didn't know in that situation, but I would never have grown, and I never would have gotten the confidence to know what was right. So you got to put your position out there and be willing to take feedback. And got a bajillion examples of where I was wrong and learned along the way. But most people don't want to be wrong. They don't want to make mistakes publicly. They want to make them just privately, and that's not realistic if you want to go out there and build up confidence and start executing on your plan.
How hard was it for you to kind of maybe share some of your losses on social media? Like I said, I think we kind of touched on it last week, how I feel like a lot of people are, they find you more relatable now that you're sharing these type of things. But there probably was a while where people saw Cody Davis and like, man, look at all these seller finance deals he did, no bank loans, and he has hundreds and hundreds of properties, and he's just winning out there. But I think, like I said, more people can relate to you now. But how hard was it for you to kind of put that out there on social media?
Well, it's just what was happening. So I had losses before that I didn't put online, but that's because I had to sue someone, and that didn't go public, so I didn't get any money out of it. But I just needed them to go away because they were stealing money and from a lot of people. So basically, I don't want to talk about that because nobody wants to talk about their first lawsuit, even if you win, right? I just wanted them out of my life. I looked up to them a lot, and it is what it is. But the ones that I could share publicly, I did. It's what happened. It's real. And so I make a video every week of what I'm doing, where I'm at, whether it's good or bad. It is what it is. It's the next logical step. So it's not difficult to post about it. But what is interesting is I see a lot of people posting about wins that aren't even wins. They fudge the numbers, and I know what the numbers are because I'll leave it at that. But it is interesting.
Yeah, we'll leave it at that. But yeah, I think, but those stories are seems like it's way more relatable now. So even like Millennial Mike, people see him out there. Like he was on, we live streamed last week, Wednesday, I believe. But I think people were more interested to see how his, I think this triplex, the one he lost like 160K on, right? I mean, he shared his journey on that. But I think a lot of people were more interested to see the update on that, and they see how are you pushing through that situation? How are you getting over that hump? Because I think at some point everyone deals with that, right? Everyone deals with some losses and some struggles, and they're trying to just figure out how to navigate it. And you and Mike sharing those stories, I think what makes it very relatable and helpful to know that even you folks, have had struggles in this journey, instead of like you're saying you're sharing just the wins and maybe some fidgeted numbers, or however you want to put it, right?
And I just want to point out, if I wanted to, I would still be buying every deal under the sun. Because once you know how to, it's just a process. You do the steps, and you buy the properties, and it wouldn't take any money out of my pocket. But it comes down for everybody. What do you want to do? There was a period of time where I wanted to buy everything under the sun, and I made certain targets, and I hit the targets, and you can do that, but it gets old. It's a lot of work. And unless you're taking proportionally bigger risks and doing bigger and bigger deals, the payout gets smaller relative to the amount of work you're doing. And so there's a point where you don't want to do it anymore. You slow down. And that's what I'm doing at this point. But there are some people that want to keep doing that. You can watch it on social media. They're doing proportionally bigger and bigger deals, taking on bigger and bigger risks, scaling out of their current problems rather than fixing their current problems. And it might work, but it also might not. And so it comes down to the individual. What do you want to do? That's the most important piece.
Yeah, I think I referred to last week. You and Zuber have your weekly discussion, and like I think or you brought him a deal, or you've been messaging him a deal, and then you guys were discussing it, and he's like, "You're growing up, Cody. The old Cody Davis, you would have bought this, right? You would have jumped in on it. You would have took that deal down. But now you're like, it's a good deal, but it's not doesn't fit my maybe end goal or whatnot, right? So like you're saying, you're growing up, and you're just it's what you're trying to do and what fits your portfolio now, right?
Yeah. It comes down to what you really want. Most people don't know what they want. Some people put on a fake vision for others of what they want because they put out what they think other people want to see. But what do you truly want is what matters. And if that's $5,000 a month and to go chill in a different country, there's a lot of ways to do that other than just buying more deals.
Chris Webb says, yes, Cody just mentioned opportunity cost and how marginal benefits outweigh marginal cost. The thing is, this is subjective to each person. Oh, Hyder, sorry, I skipped over Hyder's one. Hyder says, my legal mentor told me a story about a client's old biz getting sued. He put the company in the name of the opposing attorney and the suit disappeared. uh, yeah. Um, somebody, who was I talking to recently? Oh, Justin Canberra. He's out in Hawaii. His fiance is out here on a business trip, so we met up for coffee. And he was, he's an agent, somewhat close to you in a sense, but in that area in Pacific Northwest. But he was talking about how, like, man, within like 10-15 minutes sitting down with a client, you kind of know if they're ready to buy or not buy. But of course, you put them in your funnel because they may not be ready at this time, but down the road they will be. But do you see that? Because I'm sure there's a lot of investors that reach out to you, right, and try to pick your brain and get some ideas from. Do you see, like, when they reach out to you, can you kind of tell, like, within a certain amount of time, like, oh, this person is going to take action, and this person is going to just maybe sit on the sidelines for a while?
Yeah, you can tell. There's people that try and make an opportunity work regardless of the difficulties that will pop up. And then there's people that will point out every difficult point to get from point A to point B. That's really going to determine if people are going to buy or not. When I was getting started, I was finding every way under the sun to put a deal together, for better or for worse. And there's still so many more ways to do it. There's so many more ways than I've done. That said, I was finding every way I could find to get around difficult situations. And therefore, I ended up buying a lot of property relative to what I had. You meet with an investor that's either starting or maybe they're established and they're like, well, what about this? What about this? It's good to call those out, but they throw it out, it gets addressed, and then they're on to the next item. They're like, well, I can't do it because of this, or it's a tough time right now. A bunch of people getting laid off. I don't think people are going to be able to pay rent. Okay, well then you're not going to be able to collect rent because you're not going to own anything. Pick your problem. Because there's going to be people that'll pay rent, but there's always going to be the people that throughout those difficult situations. Like I don't think that I heard this. I don't think Moses Lake is good. There's nothing to do there. Like, have you ever been? No. Then how do you know? Well, I heard it from a friend. Okay, then it sounds like you're not going to own there. So let's focus somewhere else. But you're buying there. Yeah, I am. And people are paying me rent and people are doing stuff there. You get the point, right? I mean, just you got to identify which type of person someone is.
Yeah, absolutely. And even, kind of circling back to the initial part of our, discussion, the 50-year mortgage, right? It's like you said too, you don't have to use the 50-year mortgage, right? It's almost just like another tool, right, out there that people can take advantage. And hopefully people that may not qualify at a 30, and if they do qualify at a 50, hopefully it helps them get on the property ladder. But it's just another tool out there, and you just navigate around it. And like you're saying, you're trying to find a way to make deals work. And if the 50-year mortgage makes your deal work and it works for you, then take advantage of it. But there's always going to be winners and losers. Like you're saying, yeah, the banks definitely, they're going to win interest wise. People that own assets. But at the end of the day, you can't really control that, right? You're just trying to control, your portfolio and whatnot. But hopefully there is people like first time home buyers that can take advantage. And if the payment is lower and they do qualify, hopefully it gets more people on, the property ladder. Hey, I see John Litz here. He's doing a lot of work on his renovation in Reno. So finally, I believe he's getting that garage build ADU up and running or up and going. So hopefully he doesn't hurt himself too much and he still makes it to Vegas. I know his body has been giving him some fits, so I know he's looking forward to some downtime in Vegas for the ORAD event. And like I said, I loved like your discussion with Zuber last week also too. I think the fact that you brought up the idea of you have too much respect for Zuber, right? To just wing your presentation, and this is going to be the only presentation that you kind of prepare for, right?
You got it.
Yeah, I think that's just the community that he's building, right? I think a lot of people just respect him enough that I'm not going to wing it. So yeah, it's a fun time right now. The community is growing. People out there, make sure Zuber gets to 50 members in school. I know he's putting together like a little party or event, live Q&A. So if we can get to 50 members on the school side. But you also touched on, I think, in that video that you did about the silver bullet. So you're thinking about maybe purchasing a silver bullet, right? To kind of represent
Oh,
your video or talk about, right? Or is that just
yeah. No, you could buy them. Like JM Bullion sells silver bullets. I think they make like 2 ounce and 5 ounce silver bullets. They're kind of cool. Might buy one.
yeah? So those out there, like I said, Cody puts out new videos every Tuesday and Thursday. Whatever's top of mind, right? You just kind of whatever you're working on at the time, whatever you're thinking about. So how do you just what wing it? I mean, for your videos, I mean, you just come out with something.
Yeah, I've never had a script. I've put my phone on do not disturb, film it, and then I post it, and I don't watch it. And that's it.
Cool.
But
Yeah,
that's something I've worked on for a while, and it just takes time.
Yeah, so that's why I like digging into it. So they're kind of about 5, maybe 10 minute videos, and then we can always dig into it more on Mondays. And you also do your weekly recording. When does that video come? Has he with Zubert? I know you guys record on Mondays, but has he given you like a date, like this, it comes out on this day or it just randomly
It
appears?
gets posted on his channel. It's kind of random. Sometimes it's the same day, next day, Wednesday, Thursday. It just depends.
Yeah.
And also on the 50-year mortgage, I want to give a piece of imagery there because it's important for folks to see it. Just because you hit your thumb once with a hammer doesn't mean you don't use the hammer again. Some people are going to get burned with debt, but each debt product is a different tool. And just because someone gets hurt with a specific tool, I've seen people that cut off their thumb. It doesn't mean you never use a saw again. It means you're careful, you're intentional, you're cautious, right? You do the work, you do the due diligence. Just because someone got burned with a certain debt product, or there's a lot of reasons you could get burned, it doesn't mean construction companies aren't going to use a hammer again because someone hit their thumb and broke their nail, right? I mean, you use the tool for the job you need to use it for, and you do it cautiously. So each debt product, each equity structure, it is a tool for a specific job. And if you have that job in front of you, use the tool wisely, would be my encouragement.
Great advice. I do see someone, they could be someone new to your channel, possibly. So, Ahmed El Salit says, what do you do, Cody? Are you a real estate investor?
I primarily buy apartment buildings in Central Washington. I've bought rental property in Tennessee, Indiana, Central Washington, Western Washington. I bought a hotel, flipped a motel, two motels. I don't own those anymore, but I primarily buy and hold apartment buildings.
He was also on Bigger Pockets Rookie, on the regular Bigger Pockets a while back, and I think a lot of people know Cody Davis for having no bank loans for a while, right? Like in the beginning, how long until you had your first bank loan for your investment properties?
That would have been a little over 4 years since I started.
Dang. And now so that's kind of, but you're kind of transition. So if you were to buy something now, you're okay with taking on the bank loan for, you're not just looking for any seller finance type stuff, right?
No, I'm actually doing a ground up development and using a bank loan. But
Nice.
you again, it's a tool for a situation. And back then, rather than asking the question of, well, what would I need to do to get the bank loan? I just said, oh, I can't use that tool yet, which was right and wrong, but it allowed me to dig into the other tools in the tool shed and say, okay, how do I do the private money thing? And so I figured that out.
Ahmed said, "Yeah, damn, that's pretty impressive." So yeah, Ahmed, if you are new to his channel, please subscribe and like, and definitely follow Cody. He comes out with new videos every Tuesday and Thursday. Deconstructing Dreams says, "I think investors will have a very short window to do a cash out refi with a 50 to lower the payment and redeploy into another property before the prices go up." So that's a great question. If the 50-year does become available to everyone, was that something you would consider doing right now?
If I could get a 50-year mortgage on my 39 unit, for example, or my 27, I would. I wouldn't do it just to pull out a bunch of cash. I'd want to see what happens in the market, and you don't want to just test it out right away. But I would definitely shift stuff into 50 because that's closer to interest only than it is to amortize over 30. And I love interest only debt because I try and be as responsible as I can. The philosophy on that is, let's say you have 10 properties, 10 plexes for round numbers on a 30-year AM, and each one gets paid down 1,000 a month. If it were up to me, I'd have them all on interest only, have an extra 10 grand a month, and I'd hammer, save a bunch of money and hammer one mortgage rather than make little picks at 10 mortgages each month. I'd rather do that. So With the 50, that's closer to interest only. Maybe instead of saving 1,000 a property, I save 800 a property. And even if I pay a little higher interest rate, the thing about those properties is I'm not the one paying it. Doesn't matter. I am letting my tenants pay it off over a longer period of time, but I get paid more money to wait for it to go up in value. And even though people say appreciation's icing on the cake, the, it is, but the business model is getting paid to wait for it to go up in value. So if I get paid more to wait, it's a great day.
Ahmed is asking, how much money would you recommend starting with to renting houses? His follow-up is, I only got 20K saved up. Is it even worth getting into real estate at my stage, or should I focus on my business and save more first?
Well, don't have enough input there. But if you're, let's, as an example, let's say the extra income you have from your business every month, you can save 2 grand a month. Maybe that's the number. So in 1 year from now, you're going to have $44,000 saved up. $44,000, you could go buy a $500,000 piece of property with that if you own or occupy it. But you're going to have to figure out what's your market, what's your loan going to be, and you got to research every deal. That's a big piece. When I talk with investors, I ask them, have you looked at every deal and your buy box? I used to think the buy box was stupid, and then I grew up. Have you looked at every deal that fits what you're looking for in your market? I've looked at every multifamily deal in my market many times over, and I look every day. So you should figure out your market. Are there deals you want to buy there that fit what you're looking for? And then are you going to qualify for the debt? And then it comes down to, do you have the down payment for it and the closing costs? Because if you can get the deal and you can get the debt and you have the money down, yeah, you can go buy a deal. But if you're in North Dakota, prices are going to be different than if you're in New York. And you're just going to have to assess that situation, look at the properties on the market where you're at to determine if you have enough money saved up or not. I did it with about 3 grand in my pocket. I bought $1,000,001 piece of property, but what worked for me may not work for you. And what works for you may not have worked for me because I didn't have 20 grand. I also didn't have a business.
Yeah, great advice. I think mine would pretty much be the same thing. Just part of it too is just getting around the right community of people that can help you, whether it's real estate. I know you mentioned real estate in your chat, but some people it could be stocks, some people it could be Bitcoin, crypto, but definitely find the people that's in your community that kind of has more interest in what you're kind of interested in, right? Because real estate may not be your thing, right? Some people it is stocks, but find the people that are doing it. And I think like Dion likes to mention too. Make sure your credit score is healthy. Pay off whatever consumer debt you possibly have. Get yourself in the right position to move forward. And a lot of that too is, you know, are you ready to invest, right? Are you dealing with any life conditions, right? Are you getting married soon? Are you going through a divorce and all these type of things, right? But definitely just find the right community. And there is a lot of options. Like you said, if house hacking or owner occupied type things where you can live there, cut down on your living expense, that's definitely one way to get into it. Oh, he's in Canada. It says, oh shit, it's expensive here in Canada. I have to save up a lot just for the down payment. Yes, hey, it's so funny you mentioned that, Ahmed. There is some people in our school community that are in Canada and they are looking to invest in the States. So that is something maybe you should check out, the One Rent at a Time school community, and meet up with some of these people that are in Canada trying to figure out how to invest in the States for, possibly a 50-year mortgage, but more for the fixed rate debt. Because I know in Canada that has become quite the problem up there, is the financing, and because they don't offer the same type of 30-year fixed rate mortgages up in Canada. Hey, Dylan's here, Cody's partner for the Gen Z call, which is turning into really a grumpy old bunch of men. Just not too many Gen Z show up on the Saturday morning call, but it is a fun time. But it's open for everyone. Yasik recommend always have more money saved up than you think you would need for an average investor. Yeah, very good point. Chris Webb. Yeah, anything else you want to talk about on the 50-year mortgage, or your video, the silver bullet, or anything else you want to roll out?
If anybody has any specific questions on it, we could dive into that. But it's more going to be the business philosophy of why you would use it versus not use it. If it's a matter of being able to get into a deal or not, I would take it. If
Absolutely.
it if you own a bunch of assets and you can unlock more cash flow, I would do it. Again, it's what do you want to own the real estate for, right? If your goal is to free up your time and free up your cash flow, we'd have to do the math on it, but how much extra cash flow do you have if you had $2 million of debt on a 30 versus a 50? Could that get you optionality, getting away from your job sooner? Could. And that's what it's all about. And people don't just buy real estate to own real estate unless they're super rich. So if you could free up extra cash flow sooner, I would do it.
Dylan says starting on looking at a refi on my triplex. Are you saying in hopes of the 50-year coming out real soon, or just in general? But just shot lending one a oh he shot lending one a message earlier today. Hey, Hugo's here. Stay winning pot or stay winning wealth. So go check out his YouTube channel. He has one of the coolest voices out there in crypto, but check him out. Um, Chris Ramsey says children will put your optimization and procedures into Hyper.js. No, he looks like he's trying to refi also. But yeah, I definitely agree with that, right? If it makes sense for you, I definitely think the one thing I struggle with a lot of times when I see the 50-year mortgage is people always saying the banks are going to make money. And I'm kind of like, well, that doesn't, like you're saying, right? Someone else's, or the tenant, or if you're renting it out, or it's going to be paid by someone else. And I definitely see from if it's a home purchase for yourself, yeah, you're going to pay over a period, like you're saying, more interest. But it's always boggles my mind when people are concerned that someone else is making money in a sense, right? That you're going to have more interest payments down the road or over a longer period of time.
People are silly. And here's the reason why. They're looking at who's making the most money rather than who's making the best return. If the bank lends you money at 7% over 30 years or 50 years, it doesn't matter. They're investing way more money than you are. So are they going to make more money? Absolutely. It's the same reason you can make 5% on $100 million. And that's going to be a lot better than 100% on $1 million. And who's going to place $1 million and get 100% return? Very few people that are here, right? There's some people that can, but people aren't typically making that big of a investment to get that type of return consistently every year. So it's about the sheer volume of money that's moving. If the bank puts up $500,000 and you put up $35,000, of course they're going to make more money because they're investing more. But if you look at the return, they're going to get their 7% forever, and basically forever. You are going to make 35,000 if that $535,000 asset goes up 10% over 2 years. Your 35 turned into like 90, and your return is already a decade worth of return that the bank would have gotten. But it's relative to how much you're putting out. So the whole, well, they're making more money. Of course they are. They're investing way more money than you, but your return is going to be significantly higher. People get in their own way.
Yeah. Um, Bill, all fired up, says, do you see home buyers wanting to get 50 years? As an investor, I say yes, but from a homeowner, not sure. Any thoughts? So we kind of touched on it a little bit in the beginning, but you want to maybe give a quick recap of what we kind of discussed on that from a homeowner perspective, possibly, Cody?
I've never met someone that says, "Oh, I just want to go get a big mortgage." Never heard it. There's the Kiyosakis of the world that say, "I want to borrow a bunch of money that's paid for by other people," but I've never heard someone say, "Well, I just want to go get a mortgage." What people say is, "I want to own a home. I want to own investment property. I want cash flow. I want a place for my kids, whatever it is." That's the goal. And then you have the means to get there, which is either your cash or a mortgage or of some sort. So if the stated goal is I want to own a house, and the only way they qualify to own a house is with 50, then yes, they're going to do it. People find a way to do things that they want to do. So that in that case, yeah, people will take that, but it's not because they want it. It's because they want to get a house, and their want to get a house is stronger than their need to have a 30-year or 15-year or 10-year mortgage.
No, no, Bill, no worries. You came in late. I mean, it's good we're touching back on that question, but I think even, I know Zuber came out with his impromptu live, kind of pushing back on Dion's thoughts on the 50-year mortgage last night. But, he also mentioned the other day on one of his daily financials, right, that I think the average median age for the first time home buyer is now 40 years old, right? So people are having a more difficult time getting on the property ladder with home ownership. And like we said, if there's not a mass building of homes, starter homes, smaller homes, if there's not a drastic increase in wages, it's always going to be a challenge for the near future. And having a 50-year mortgage option might be the way to get home ownership median age back down, right? So it's just another tool out there.
And on that point, the idea behind it may change. Instead of having a free and clear house, it may be, well, this mortgage is it's gonna outlive me, but at least I get to pass on some equity to my kids, which is huge because real estate over long enough periods of time does go up. And if maybe they're 40 and they live to 70, but they have a 50-year mortgage, at least their kids are going to inherit some equity, right? It positions them to set up the next generation. Granted, it'll
Yep.
be at a later age, but it gets passed down, and then that gets passed down, and it can be substantial at that point.
Yeah, very good point. And I see Chris Wissing tuning in. If you haven't, please go subscribe to his YouTube channel. He's starting to put out more of his work on his California property out there, and he's getting his son involved in some of the work. So go check that out on YouTube. He should be in Vegas again for his third time in February. But Chris Webb also says, I understand the banks are making money. Do they not provide a good service to the customer? Also make more money compared to what other lender? Also make more money. Yeah, kind of to Cody's point, right? Yeah, everyone, they're gonna make money, but how much money are they putting into I guess the purchase or whatnot in a sense. Um, yeah, I think this was a great discussion. It's always a good time. Like I said, I think people are amazed at how young you are, but yet how your mind thinks, right? You're definitely seeing things from a very, very, very seasoned investor. I think you're looking at the bigger picture of things, right? So it's very impressive at how you see things, and I think that's the biggest thing, just getting different perspectives on the 50-year mortgage, even creative finance type stuff. But just going back to your silver bullet video, it's just getting off the sidelines, right? It's, just moving the ball down the field, like you're saying, right? Little increments, wins, but it's not going to always be perfect, right? But that's why all these tools are out there too, to hopefully allow you to maybe navigate some of the mistakes that you may encounter. Cody is the GOAT. Oh, Camden Kaminsky is tuning. I haven't seen you here before, but thanks for tuning in. But yes, Cody is amazing.
That's funny.
Why is that
But
funny?
no, I know Cam. He's funny.
Well, Camden, yes, we agree. I think a lot of people in the community do feel Cody is the GOAT. Uh, Chris Webb says, as prices rise, people want to produce more of the good. Okay. Ah, I see. Oh, Janelle is here. She's new to the school community. She's in California. Um, she says, can you share what a typical seller finance terms looks like? What do you usually see as standard or fair terms for interest rate, down payment, length, etc.?
Well, there's no typical, and it all comes down to the deal. I'm gonna actually make a video on this sometime. I dreamt about this topic a little while ago, which things I dream about, right? But weird. If you had a 6% interest only mortgage on $1 million loan, your payment would be 5 grand a month. On a 10 unit, depending on the location, that could work. Would you rather have a 6% interest only loan with a $5,000 payment, or have a 0% interest installment loan where your payment is 12 grand a month? What would you rather have, Mark?
Sorry, man, I wasn't listening.
No,
I was looking at the
that's no,
question.
that's
Sorry.
that's fine. The topic is so controversial. People say, well, you wouldn't get those options, but you can get those options. What's an ideal seller finance term? Would you rather have 6% interest only on $1 million loan with a $5,000 payment, where you cash flow, let's say 2 grand a month net, right? $5,000 payment, 2,000 cash flow, but all of its interest, or a 0% interest installment loan where the payment's 12 grand a month? Which one would you rather have? Zero interest or 6% IO where you actually cash flow?
Yeah, first one, man.
One is more ideal,
Yep.
but it's not realistic. So even though you could pay no interest and all of it goes to amortization, if you're losing 5 grand a month, you're losing 5 grand a month. If you're making two, that works. It is your job to make every individual deal work. And while there are better debt products out there, better for interest rate or better for term, it doesn't matter. It matters what you can make work with your given situation. So you're going to have a certain amount of payment. Some of it will be interest. All of it could be interest. Maybe none of it's interest. But it matters what allows you to buy it and keep it and cash flow it for the long term.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, Janelle, I'm not sure if you ever heard like Zuber talk about one of his stories. I forget what property it was, but he, basically gave the seller or overpaid for a property, I believe, on a 50/40/10 or a seller finance type of deal. And he's like, yeah, I'm sure that seller was at the golf course bragging about it, how I suckered this investor into paying me more or giving me a higher price and all that. But Zuber walked away with it. He won in his mind because the terms are on the terms he needed to make the deal work, right? So maybe he gave the seller a higher price, but the terms worked out for Zuber to get in the deal and make the deal work for him. So it's not always about, like you're saying, there's a ideal terms or interest or but it's whatever makes the deal work for you and to get in the deal, right? So the seller may win too, right? The seller may get his price or more, but the terms are what's going to make the deal win for you or work for you, right? So I think that's the important part. And here we go. Oh, Chris Wissing, before I get to Lynn's controversial topics. But Chris Wissing says, I think the mortgage time increases. It has a cause and effect. Sadly, people won't look at the effect. They want the here and now. Yeah. You have anything to say on that? Or
I think that's just human nature to want relief now. Screw the future. Let's look at now, which is why people take out car loans. They're basically pulling stuff from the future into today, which on the investment side is great. On a personal side, awful idea. So it's just what people do. They want to ease the pain today.
so Lynn, who a lot of people know, does not shop at. She does not have a Costco membership. I don't know. Do you shop at Costco, Cody? Because I know you don't have kids, but do you shop at Costco or anything?
I go to Costco. I get for like a hot dog date. Haven't done that though. I need to. There's a
But
Costco just south of us because $1.50 for a hot dog is a great deal.
yeah, but Lynn totally believes that it's part of the problem with consumerism and overspending. People go to Costco and then they walk with all these things they don't need. But she is saying, how are you guys staying away from overspending during these upcoming holidays? Hmm. Do you buy a lot for the holidays, Cody?
I'm trying to buy a sevenplex right now. It's I don't spend a lot of money in general because I stay cash poor. I never have extra money ever. One day maybe, but my idea on money is it is to be used to make more money and to help other people out who need it. Like That's what it's for. So when I get extra money, I either invest into assets or I give it away, and that's what it's for. So do I have a whole bunch of extra money to spend? No, and that helps. If you're poor, you're cash poor, you don't spend a lot of money.
Wrap things up in maybe about 5 to 10 minutes, but let's see. Chris says, yeah, Costco has the best deal on chicken. Yeah, and hot dogs too, right? So hot dogs, chicken, uh, and that's another thing too. Well, it's a whole different topic, I guess. But even like the Costco gas, right? People wait in line to save, whatever. What is it? Maybe 30 cents a gallon or something. But you're sitting in line for like 45 minutes, possibly, right? So it's kind of interesting. Um, Chris Ramsey says, I have a similar sentiments. If it pencils well and you can acquire the asset 50 to 60 years, that don't matter. It's another chess piece either for you or your heirs. Yeah, very good point. Janelle says, makes sense. I have to find that video from Zuber. Thank you. How? All right, Chris. How do I not spend? I lose money on bet. Dude, they won yet. Caleb for president. He pulled it out in the fourth quarter again. Hey, my man Nick is here, so we got to schedule something too, Nick. We got to get you regular, my Bitcoin guy. But lead prayer huddle. So go check out his channel on YouTube. He's putting out daily content on the most updated news on Bitcoin and some economic data and information and how it relates to Bitcoin. So go check him out. Let's see. Brian, hey, what's up? Brian just closed on a duplex in Pittsburgh with some of the people we work with. But he said the greatest insight I learned from Cody is his mindset of focusing on figuring out how to make a deal work rather than walking away from things that aren't perfect at the start. Ah, you have anything to say on that point, Cody?
I get it from a Robert Kiyosaki video that he posted like 15 years ago or something on YouTube. It was one of his originals, but it's the entrepreneur's job to figure out how to go from A to B is the summary of what he said. And there's going to be conflicts, there's going to be issues. Nothing's going to be perfect. And if it is perfect, it's probably a red flag. Got to investigate that a little bit. But it's your job to figure it out. And once you take responsibility for that, you can either decide, I don't want to do this, or I get to get through it. So that's how I approach everything. And I think if that's your takeaway, that's a good takeaway, because there's a lot of positive and negative takeaways to get from me. So that's a good one.
Yeah, there's some Bitcoin talk. Yeah, so Nick is saying, yeah, my Bitcoin is so liquid and easy to sell and travel. Currently in Zion National Park in Utah. All right, we'll start after Thanksgiving, Nick. Yeah, it looks like you're doing some traveling right now. Yeah, we'll wrap it up. Yeah, talking about gas. I see Mick here talking about gas is open before and after hours for your pumping needs. Yeah, well, any final words? I think it's a perfect place to wrap things up then. So anything else you have to say before we sign off?
I'm all good.
All right, everyone. Thanks. This is always fun catching up with Cody on Mondays, kind of recapping some of the videos he puts out on Tuesday and Thursdays. So if you haven't, go check those out. I'll be back tomorrow, same time, with Brandon, Build to Rent, or B2R Investing. He keeps changing his name, but he's also going to be speaking at the event in February. But everyone, thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you folks tomorrow.